Ready to lead like you've been doing it for years? The truth is, leadership is hard, but waiting to feel ready is harder. This is the Instant Leader podcast with Andy Lee, bringing you real stories and proven principles to lead with more confidence today.
When everyone's priority becomes your problem and saying yes feels helpful in the moment but costly by the end of the week, how do you actually decide what matters? And that's what this episode is about. It's not time management, it's not productivity hacks, but how managers make clear, defensible decisions when the pressure doesn't stop. There's a moment most managers recognize, whether you're 6 months into the role or 6 years. It's when you open your calendar and realize it's no longer yours. You're promoted because you are dependable. You got things done. You said yes. And now that same instinct is quietly running your week for you. Your boss needs something urgently. Your team needs support. Another department wants just 5 minutes, which we know is never 5 minutes, but that somehow becomes a project. And by Friday, you're exhausted, not because you didn't work hard, but because everything felt important and nothing felt chosen. Here's the key reframe for you. This is not a time management problem, because time management assumes that you control your time. Most managers don't. Your real challenge is prioritization under pressure. It's the competing demands. It's the unclear trade-offs. It's the decisions that feel political rather than practical. And at the center of it all is a subtle identity shift that almost nobody prepares you for. You're still operating like a doer, when the role actually requires you to become a protector of focus, a protector of capacity, a protector of the work that genuinely matters. This is what I call the promotion paradox. You get promoted for execution, but you're valued for judgment, decisions. The behaviors that made you successful early on, speed, responsiveness, being helpful, slowly become liabilities if they're left unchecked. I've seen this repeatedly, both in my own experience and working with managers across different industries. When you say yes to something, 3 things happen. 1, your team burns out because nothing ever gets deprioritized. Everything just gets stacked because everything's equally important. 2nd, you burn out because you're still carrying the responsibility for everyone else's priorities, often alongside your own current workload. And 3rd, and this is the quiet one, you lose strategic altitude. And here's what I mean. When every day is reactive, there's no space to think, to plan, or to lead. A common moment this shows up is when you inherit a long, messy task list. No rationale, no priorities, just a history of unchallenged commitments. The instinct is to deliver it all, because that's what a good employee would do. But a good manager asks different questions. What actually matters now? What aligns with our goals? What can we stop doing without damage? And that's the shift. Your role is no longer to prove you can do the work. Your role is to protect the conditions for the right work to happen. And that shift starts with how you respond to the very next request. So here's the slow down framework. Here's how you create space before making a commitment. The most important moment in your week is often the shortest. It's the first 30 seconds after someone asks you for something. And that's where most managers lose control, not because they lack skill, but because they respond too quickly. The reflex is to say yes, to keep things moving, to avoid friction, to look competent. But effective managers do something different. They slow the moment down, just enough to create decision space. Before committing, they ask 3 internal questions. What's the real impact of this? 2, is it genuinely urgent or just framed that way? And 3, what are the alternatives? That pause changes the entire dynamic. Instead of an immediate yes, you say, let me check our current priorities and come back to you. That one sentence doesn't create conflict, it creates credibility. It moves you from being an order taker to a decision maker. And this is the difference between a guilty yes and a defensible decision. A guilty yes feels good for seconds and costs you all week. A defensible decision might feel uncomfortable briefly, but it protects focus, energy, and outcomes. Over time, this becomes a system rather than a willpower exercise. You stop deciding in the heat of the moment, and you start filtering requests against what you've already committed to. And that's how you move from a calendar dictated by urgency to a week shaped by intention. Next, the 5 blocks of a defensible week. Here's how to create space before you commit. Creating space before you commit, is step 1. So step 2 is having a structure that builds your decisions. Step 2, take out. Step in. Step 2 is having a structure that makes your decisions defensible. So creating space before you commit is step 1. Step 2 is having a structure that makes your decisions defensible, not just to yourself, but to others. Most productivity systems fail managers because they assume perfect days, no interruptions, no reality. And what you actually need is something far, far simpler. A week built around 5 essential blocks. 1. Strategic work, the work that genuinely moves things forward. 2. Team support, the coaching, one-to-ones, availability for them. 3. Operational commitments, meetings and reporting that keep things running. 4. Stakeholder management, time for your boss and cross-functional relationships. And number 5, your own focus time, because your thinking is a leadership asset. When your week is anchored to these blocks, urgency loses its grip. You can see immediately whether a new request deserves to displace what's already planned. And this does something important psychologically. It removes your guilt. You're no longer saying no because you're busy. You're making a trade-off unconsciously. This also becomes a powerful communication tool, a simple 1-page weekly focus view that lets you say, here's what we're prioritizing this week. Where should this new request fit? That single shift changes conversations from reactive to strategic and positions you as somebody who leads with authority. So, even the best plan falls apart without the right language. And this is where many managers struggle, not because they don't know their priorities, but because they don't know how to defend them professionally. Protection doesn't mean being difficult. It means being clear. With peers, it might sound like, I can't help, but to do it properly next week would work better. We're focused on the deadline for this week. With your manager, you could say something like, I want to make sure we're aligned. We're currently prioritizing X, so should this take precedence? And when capacity is genuinely full, you say, I'm committed to A, B, and C this week. To take this on, which one should pause? See, that's not pushback, that's leadership behavior. And over time, this builds trust because people see that when you commit, you deliver. So this is the shift from doer to protector, from reactive yeses to defensible decisions, from constant pressure to deliberate prioritization. Not by working harder, but by deciding better. Now, if you want more help turning this into a practical, repeatable system, something you can use immediately, not just understand conceptually, I've put together a focused workshop called How to Prioritize When Everyone Wants Everything. It's designed to give you absolute clarity on what matters, how to decide, and how to protect a calmer, healthier workload, even when the pressure doesn't go away. You find a link somewhere, maybe in the show notes, because prioritization isn't about managing time. It's about protecting what matters most.
Thanks for listening to The Instant Leader. If this episode helped, please follow the show and leave a quick review. It really helps others find us. For practical resources and to join the community, head to theinstantleader.com. I'm Andy Lee. See you next time.